Hi everybody, hope you're doing well today. I'd like to welcome you back to Scale Skills, Preparatory level. This video is lesson 6 and we're going to cover page 7 in the book today, B major. All right, our previous lesson we covered E major. And if you recall, the key signature for E major was 4 sharps. That's F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and D sharp. Now those 4 sharps are going to carry into B major, and we're going to pick up a 5th sharp, our newest sharp, which is A. So here's one of the A sharps on the piano. Now, B major is going to get a little tricky. This is where things get a little more challenging with our scales. Up to this point, it's pretty much been the same fingering. Now, it's been a little bit more challenging as we keep adding sharps, which means more black keys on the piano. One thing about B major that can be a little bit easier is you've got 5 sharps. Well, you've got 5 black keys on the piano. So as you well know, the piano is composed of a repeating set of 2 black keys and 3 black keys. But those are our 5 black keys that just keeps repeating and repeating, up or down. So it's kind of cool that you've got 5 black keys and you've got 5 sharps. So you will be using all 5 black keys. Now, of course, there's more notes than that in a scale, so you still have a couple of white keys, but you won't be passing by any black keys. So in a sense, that can be a little bit easier. But if you're not used to playing that, that's where it gets a little tricky. So for our right hand, the fingering for the 5-finger position here at the beginning is obvious and pretty simple. 5-finger position means I'm using all 5 fingers. So that's no different than anything else we've done in the book. What's going to be a little bit more challenging, though, I think, is our 4th finger is our weakest finger, right? It's our least independent. So you can see here as I get ready for my 5-finger position, I'm actually outlining C sharp, D sharp, and F sharp. I'm putting my 5 fingers, on the 5 keys that are about to be played. So as I do that, look at where my 4th finger is, okay? It's kind of just nestled down in there. So to me, that's a little tricky because you're playing these raised black keys and then all of a sudden you've got the white key now that's down a little bit lower and you're playing it with the 4th finger. For some of you, that may not make any difference. Some people have bigger hands, longer fingers, and it might just as well be fine. For me, though, I find that to be a little tricky. So I have to curve my 4th finger just a little bit more. If I play flat, it's not going to be very strong. But if I curve it, and the same goes for the other fingers too, but if I get it really curved, I can get that fingertip and I get a little more control and a little more power. So before you do the 5-finger position, here's the B we're going to start on, right below middle C. Put your thumb on that B. Now put 2 on C sharp, that's one of our sharps. 3 on D sharp, that's also one of our sharps. You're going to squeeze that 4th finger in on that E, and your 5th finger, that's a little tricky too, because that's another weak finger that's going to go on the F sharp. So if you've got the fingers on the notes, that's going to make it a little bit easier. You don't want to start with your thumb on B and then try to position your hand after the thought. Have it positioned ahead of time. All right, so once it's positioned, we've got thumb on B, 2 on C sharp, 3 on D sharp, 4 on E, 5 on F sharp. Now, something I may not have expressed too much in prior lessons, but since we're talking about fingering, we're talking about strength, if you're in a spot right now in these studies where you find if you press one of the keys and all of a sudden your other fingers shoot straight up, now don't panic. That's completely normal. That just means the fingers aren't really fully developed yet in terms of your strength as a pianist. But something to be aware of if that happens. Again, I talk about curving the fingers like you're holding a ball. You want to get to that point where your fingers aren't shooting straight out. Now, if you're doing one hand at a time and they shoot really, really far, you can take your left hand and kind of remind yourself by covering up the fingers. Now, you still need to see the notes. Well, if your fingers are on the notes, you actually technically don't have to see them, right? But my point is, if you got your left hand there, it can kind of help hold them down so they don't accidentally shoot out. So that's something to start being a little more aware of. All right, so once again, we got B with our thumb, 2 on C sharp, 3 on D sharp, 4 on E, 5 on F sharp, and we're coming back down to 4 on E, 3 on D sharp, 2 on C sharp, and then the thumb on B. Now, the very last measure, we have our 1 chord, the 1 meaning basically the chord that's named after the key that we're playing in. So if we're in the key of B, we're going to play a B chord. So to make that B chord, it's going to be B and a third up and a third up from that. A third up from B is D, but remember we have a D sharp, so we're going to sharp it. And another third up from D is F, but F is also sharp, so we're going to sharp that. So there is your chord. Now you shouldn't have too much trouble finding it because you just played it in the 5-finger position. That was the 1st, 3rd, and 5th note. So again, another advantage to keeping your fingers on the keys is that they're right there for that chord. Otherwise, if you leave the keys and do something like this, you're going to have to waste a little bit more time trying to find that chord. So a lot of this is keeping the fingers very close to the keys, and you'll get more success that way. Now the left hand, it's the exact same notes, but your 5th finger is on this B, an octave lower. That puts 4 on F sharp, 3 on D sharp, 2 on E, and the thumb on F sharp. Now again, this E is a little tricky. It's my 2nd finger, a much stronger finger, but the D sharp and the E, my fingers end up being, really close together. So you may be experiencing that just like you did in the right hand. So it's still a little tricky right there. All right, so once again, B with the pinky, 4 on C sharp, 3 on D sharp, 2 on E, thumb on F sharp, going back down to 2 on E, 3 on D sharp, 4 on C sharp, and then 5 on B. And then the 1 chord, of course, is the same, B, D sharp, and F sharp. And then, of course, the last thing you want to do is put the hands together. So go ahead and have all your fingers, curve them as much as you can, and go nice and slow and nice and even. So we got the B's, C sharps. So go slow enough that you feel every finger, every note being very secure and very sure of itself. You don't want to have any keys where the fingers feel really weak or really shaky. You want to be very, very steady and firm. And the same goes for the chord at the end. So again, same fingering that we've been doing since lesson 1. But now that we've got these combinations of white and black keys, it gets a little more uneven in a sense, right? Because the black keys are higher, the white keys are lower. So your fingers, are trying to figure out the right balance. Because musically, when we play those 5 notes up and down, we want it all to be the same volume, to be the same touch. Everything is pretty much, and evenness is the same. So much evenness is going on musically. Our fingers are not equal. We're not playing keys that are equal. So think about that as you're playing this. You have to find that musical balance by shifting things physically. But a great way to start that is the curved fingers, being very firm and sure of yourself, and very strong with each finger on each key. So that's very important, I feel. All right, now moving on, the scale, the tetrachord form. So we've talked about tetrachords a little bit here and there. I often say in these lessons, it's not imperative that you know the tetrachord to play a scale well, but a tetrachord basically explains why a scale is what it is. Now, I'm not going to get into that in this lesson, but the same rule applies as tetrachords for any other scale before this and any other scale after this, as long as it's a major scale. But as a review, the tetrachord form in this book, the way we're playing it is we're going to start our left hand in the same place we did for the 5-finger position. The only difference is we're playing 4 notes, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. Now you're not going to play the F sharp with your left hand. That's where the second finger, not the thumb, the second finger. So remember, when we do this, we don't use thumbs. So the second finger in the right hand comes in on F sharp, third finger G sharp, 4 on A. Oh, sorry, that's our A sharp. Oh, that gets me every time. And the 5 on the B. All right, so that feels awkward. Even from my hands, that is super awkward. but use that to your advantage. Use this as an opportunity to really strengthen the fingers and to play in awkward situations. Imagine if you master this, how much easier it's going to play in less awkward situations. So there's always that. All right, so going through it again, this would be your hand position. Again, I would get that up there before you play. And remember, your thumbs are basically just hugging each other off the keyboard. All right, so slow and even is the key. Start on the B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Now the right hand, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and B. This is going to be really tricky because I feel like, even though I didn't do it, I feel like untrained hands can really come off these keys and lose the spot. So this is a great, great, great challenge for keeping the keys once again on the keys. I mean, keeping the fingers on the keys, excuse me. Picking it up on the second to last measure, we're coming down to the A sharp with the fourth finger in the right hand. 3 on G sharp, 2 on F sharp. Now the left hand, 2 on E, 3 on D sharp, 4 on C sharp, and finally 5 on B. So ultimately, you're going to want this to be a smooth motion up and down. A little bit faster is, of course, great. So if you're able to get to that point, you're in really, really good shape on that one. That is tough, though, I will say. That is a very good workout for the fingers. Now the chord progression on the third line. The first two measures, we're playing the 1 chord, the 5 chord, and the 1 chord in root position. Let's start with the right hand. Now the 1 chord's already been established at the end of the first line up there. B, D sharp, and F sharp. 1, 3, and 5 is our fingering. So that's root position B, meaning the B is at the bottom. Now the 5 chord is based off the 5th note of the scale, which is F sharp. F sharp's the 5th note in the B major scale. Notice it's also the top note of the 1 chord. So I'm going to take that same fingering, 1, 3, and 5, and I'm going to jump up to 3 black keys. F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. So this is our first chord that we've played in this book that is all 3 black keys. And then we're going to come back down to the B chord. So keep in mind as you play this, 1, 3, 5. You're not using 2, you're not using 4. So once again, from the 1 chord, jump up to the 3 black keys. And do make sure that it's an A sharp, not a G sharp, but an A sharp that you're playing in there. And back to B major. Same thing in the left hand, 1, 3, 5. Or excuse me, 5, 3, 1. Building it from the bottom up. We're coming up to our F sharp chord. Same 3 black keys. Same fingering, 5, 3, 1. And then back to the 1 chord, B major. And then we'll do it, of course, with both hands. Now take your time on this as well. Don't play the notes until all 6 fingers are over the right notes and then come down at the same time. If you didn't come out down at the same time, don't go to the next chord. Stay there. Practice it again. If this happens, and you heard the right hand go before the left, balance it out. Get your left hand to come in maybe just a hair sooner. But you want all 6 notes to sound at the same time. Same thing when you go back down. Take your time, line it up, and then play. I would say when you're first learning this stuff, never just try to go for it. Never try to guess. Now, I've been playing these a long time, so that wasn't my guess. I know how to do that. But my point is, never try to just throw your hands up there and pray you get it. That's called being lucky. So you don't want to be lucky. You want to know it. And the best way to know it is to take your time, line it up, and then play. Let's look at common tone. Now, common tone as a review means you're not going to be playing all the chords in root position. Now, you're going to start in root position with the B. We're not just going to the F sharp, we're going to F sharp 7. Now F sharp 7 as a review is going to be F sharp, A sharp, C sharp, and E. E's the 7th note. But the rule is when you have a 4-note chord, you may eliminate the 5th, which is the C sharp. So we're left with F sharp, A sharp, and E. But we're not going to jump from the B chord down here all the way to the F7 up here. we're going to find the common tone. Meaning, what note in B major am I playing right now is, in fact, in the F sharp 7 chord. That would be the F sharp. So I'm not even going to leave this F sharp with my 5th finger. I'm going to stay right there. So what they have in the music is you're going from B major here to F sharp 7 right here. So there's the F sharp with my 5th finger, here's the A sharp with my thumb, and here's that 7th note, the E with my 4th finger. Notice they left out the C sharp. It's not necessary. Not the easiest chord to play. I've got 2 fingers here playing a white, my 2 weak fingers, 4 and 5, playing a white key, and the F sharp, playing the black key, the raised key. So weak fingers playing uneven keys, and then my thumb's down here, and these 2 fingers are here. So not the easiest chord to play. The way I'm able to do it, again, you probably have guessed already, curve the weak fingers. Curve all your fingers, but especially those smaller, weaker fingers. That's the only way to do it. Flat fingered, I can do it, but it's not easy. This gives you power. So once again, now notice these 2 fingers shot out. For me, I have to do that because again, I'm using weak fingers on awkward, close notes. So, but even though it shoots out now, notice this doesn't hinder my B chord too much when I come back because look at my thumb. It's just going to slide down to the B. My 3rd finger is out, but I'm still hovering over the D sharp, so I haven't gone too far away. And notice I kind of curve my 3rd finger. Now this is advanced. You don't have to go this far into practicing this, but I'll even curve my 3rd finger a little bit in anticipation of that B major chord. So those are lots of little details. Now they'll help. Don't feel like you have to do all of them at this point. I'm sure some of you might just be like, let me just figure out the notes first. That's true. You want to figure out the notes first. But I want you to play the notes well, of course. So in both hands, you've already done the B chord several times. In the left hand, the F7 is 5 on the A sharp, 2 on the E, thumb on the F sharp. I find that fingering to be easier, still challenging, but easier than this. This in the right hand is really tricky. Another thing you can do in the right hand is if you're feeling this is just not working, you can practice the top 2 notes, D sharp and F sharp of the B chord going to E and F sharp. You may even say, oh, that hurts a little bit more maybe. If it hurts too much, don't do it. You don't want to put too much strain on your fingers, but if it hurts a little bit, that might be a good exercise. You're strengthening your fingers. All right, so when we put the hands together, just like we did with the root position chord, take your time, line it up, play. You're gonna find that thumbs, and yeah, the thumbs in both hands and the 2nd finger in the left hand may play before these weaker fingers. So that's the other thing. Timing it all together is going to be really tricky. And then you go back to your 1 chord. So that, I think, is another tricky spot. Lastly, arpeggio is at the bottom. The arpeggio is the broken 1 chord. It's the B major chord in root position. No different than in the previous lessons. So to line up your hands, it's going to be like playing that B chord in both hands. You're going to be right here. So in the left hand, we've got 5 on B, followed by D sharp, F sharp, and then measure 2. Right hand on B, D sharp, F sharp. Now I waited, but you're going to want to, and we've done this before, you're going to want to get that left hand to be crossing over and land with 2. 2 on B. Why 2? 2's basically the most comfortable and it has the most control. You don't want to land on your clumsy thumb. It might get too loud. So once again, as I'm playing this, notice when my right hand plays, I'm already moving my left hand. So it's right there. You don't want to do this. Now I got there in time, but you heard it was louder. So I have very little control if I wait till the last minute. Musically, we want it to be the same motion of sound. And coming back down, the same thing. Now I had to be careful. When I came back down, I really wanted to use my 2 on the F sharp. I could get away with it. But we really want to use the same finger we had on the F sharp, which was the thumb. So that's really no different than the previous lessons with the crossover of the left hand and coming back and working on the timing so that you are in motion while the right hand is playing. Okay, so that one I don't find quite as difficult of this lesson, but the scale, the chords, yeah, this is a little bit trickier, and mainly, again, it's just because of the fingers. You're really getting some use of weaker fingers here, but that's really good because that's what we want. We want to strengthen our fingers as much as possible. All right, and of course, the last thing is to know that B major has 5 sharps, and it is the 5 black keys, so there is that at least. That basically covers it in this lesson. All right, so I wish you all the best. Spend a little extra time on this one because after this, you have 2 more sharp keys. You've got F sharp and you've got C sharp. It's going to get even more difficult, not just physically, but also mentally, because now we're getting to the point where we're sharping white keys. So we're just not used to that. We think, the black keys are sharps. They are, but it's not limited to black keys. There are a couple white keys that are sharped as well. And we're not used to that. That's just going to take some extra, basically wrapping our mind around that for one, and then physically getting our fingers to do it. So B major is the last one where it's strictly black keys that are sharped. All right, so again, I wish you the best of luck, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.